Okay, we're checking now to see if we're broadcasting, so let's see what happens when I actually click the play button here. Okay, it looks like we're live. Go ahead, George.
Go ahead, George.
No, I thought I'd just put you on
Hello,
the spot.
everybody.
Go ahead. Yeah, take it away.
Jump
Get
in.
out of here. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just putting George on the spot.
Teach you,
Okay.
George.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. What is the positive? And the positive thing is if you can smile and laugh a little, that's very positive. So even though we dubbed George with the title Comic Relief, and even though Carlo Savio, my other co-host, is coming on strong as a secondary, and he might even overtake George if we're not careful, we're going to actually put the spotlight on George today and really pick his brain on a few things that we are wondering about. In his musings, he's written a blog post with 12 essential life truths. So we're going to go into this a little bit later, but first, I want to say hi to a few people, and I'm having this very weird syndrome. Maybe some of you other show hosts and hangout specialists are experiencing this. I have comment tracker working 100%. Let me see if this actually is doable, as I say here. And yes, you are live, Roland Takoka from We Wake, and thank you very much, and thank you for being here today. But I'm going to use Comment Tracker to actually trace who's here with us today and tell you who's hanging out. So We Wake, as I said, We Wake Bendor Rao. I think his name is Vivekananda. Vivekananda. I believe that's how he pronounces it. And not sure, but we're getting closer and closer to being able to spell your name and pronounce it. We wake, and then apparently J. Neal is with us today. Lowell Ann Fulsang. Let's see. Nice to see you, Lowell Ann. And I believe Deborah is also with us from Ohio. I believe that might be. Oh, that's conversation with that. That's Deborah Burden, and of course, that's probably the only Deborah that's been interacting with us. And so we have a few people in the audience, and we're having fun already, and we are live. So we'll get around to George in a second, but first we're going to introduce and say hi to Carlos Savio, one of our other co-hosts. Go ahead, Carlos, say hi.
Good morning, everybody. Carlos Savio in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here I am. I got caught texting while driving in What's the Positive?
You're driving.
Snagged.
Haven't you learned not to text and drive at the same time?
Driving myself around the bend.
That's cool. So welcome, Carlo. Thank you very much. And also George. Say hi, George. He's the proclaimed star of the show today and the focus of all of our efforts to have some fun today.
Hi, everybody. And I am not self-proclaimed star of the show. I had no hand in what Roland wrote in the introduction to today's show. It's
That's
all
true.
on your show, buddy.
That's true. He didn't actually bend my thumb when I was creating that. I had some fun with it. I've known George for quite a few months now, and we've had some really in-depth talks. And all the comic relief set aside, George comes up with some really astute observations. And he is an encyclopedia of quotes. And so when he says something, it's not just a quote because it sounds good. He's given thought to the things that he says. So recently, when he came up with a blog post in Shira's site, and this is his own stuff, not governing any parameters regarding the concept or the subject of the website in particular, the sound vibrational therapy, but actually dealing with his own thoughts and his own expression, and this is what he thinks. And he came up with 12 essential truths. And I love things like this because when you spell out a thing like 12 essential truths, it's like they often get down to the nitty-gritty of what you do every day and what you think every day and what you believe and what makes sense to you, and you can actually proclaim this is something that presently until otherwise notified, I can stand on. So, George, we're going to first ask you, what do you think primary your primary source of self-discovery and worldly discovery contributed to this type of set of truths that you have? Where did all this come from?
Oh, grief. Well, I guess I got to start looking back, way back into my childhood, because that's how we all start to experience life, okay? And I think, like most of us, I was blessed with a pile of parameters, patterns, which were ingested subconsciously, which ruled me for a lot of years. I had, I think, well, I've been married twice. I had a steamy relationship in between the two marriages. Each one was a learning process. So I think every experience in life takes us through that learning experience and gives us a chance to learn and to grow and to see what patterns, if we're really fortunate, see what patterns are driving us. And I mentioned to you earlier, Roland, there's a couple of quotes I want to read here. This is from a book that I found very helpful, and it's called 7,000 Ways to Listen. It's by a guy called Mark Nepo, who I find immensely insightful. Shira and I spend regularly every morning over a huge cup of coffee reading from, actually at present, two of Mark Nepo's books, and then discussing, because we live in a social laboratory, she and I. This is where most of my growth has occurred within our relationship. So let me just read you these two short paragraphs. This has led me over time to accept that the heart is a muscle that wants to be exercised. And though it feels like I will end each time my heart is broken, my heart only breaks into a larger version of itself. When I am present to this process, I am broken open. When I withhold my presence, I'm just broken. I only know that after my heart is broken, I am still here. And each time I breathe deeper, I stand taller. Each time I wake to an unexpected ability and urge to be kinder. So that kind of speaks to what I said about life experience, because that's a recognition on my part that that's what's happened to me as I've gone through these 69 years that I've been blessed to undertake. And the last one, this spoke to me so much. Modern culture tells us that we're entitled to a perfect, happy life. Yet if we insist on deifying a painless life free of loss, we will only be battered by the pain and loss we are given and miss the point of the journey. Much as we'd like, we can't be happy all the time, any more than we can dilate or inhale all the time. We need to dilate and constrict and inhale and exhale in order to live. And so the heart, mind, and soul need to open and close to the entirety of the human experience in order to make sense of things as they move through. Difficult as they are, pain, loss, and obstacles are dynamic forces of life that make us open and close. It's up to us to make sense of our lifelong conversation with them. So that's, in I hope not too long an expression, what created or what engendered a lot of this. And the rest of it comes from experience and going through a great 5-year-long process of moving into deep integrity and deep honesty with Shira. So that's cool. Where I stand right now.
Okay, I had a couple of observations to make because, of course, when we go through quotations such as you just delivered, people tend to, on the listening end, people tend to go, I feel in tune with what you said, and I agree with part of what you said, and gee, it felt pretty good. So they'll nod their heads, and I do the same thing. But something that I try to do whenever I hear quotes or people reading something that they think is meaningful is I try to find some keywords that I can relate to and then extrapolate out what it is that you're getting out of it, and what it is in the message that you're conveying, as of speaking of why it's important. And the first quotation, I think the focus might have been the concept of life expansion, and the idea that everything expands. When you came up with an experience, even if it was harsh, like a breakup, a broken heart, something like that, you didn't stop. And also, you didn't turn negative. Now, you know me, I'm real big on the positive, negative concept here, and the polarity of our thinking and of our being. Because what you think, that is your essence of your spirit. And when you were describing the expansion, that tells me a lot about you, because inevitably you're a person that takes on life through an essence of expansion and absorbing and learning more and that sort of thing. Whereas there are a lot of people, and we all know people like this. Some of us have been people like this, and when you learn something or discover something or have an event, you shut down and you say, "Ah, no more of that." That's one of the things that I'm not going to do ever, 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 ever again. And so we start building the walls and blocks. Instead of saying, well, okay, that's what happened in this one instance, here's what I learned from that. Now, here's what I take away so I can live my life better. Now, even if you decide to make choices that are away from one thing that you want to avoid, we don't dwell on what it is that we want to avoid. We simply focus on what we want and step forward. And so there's a keen difference between the two things about holding something and building a brick to put in your wall, to build your fort, so you live in the box that you built, and another thing to build the platform upon which to stand and get a better view and have a better idea where you're going and something to walk on and move. So I'm very much into building a platform and a road and not walls. If I'm going to build something, I'm going to build a platform and walls. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if Carlo, if you want to chime in, you're welcome to interrupt me anytime, or George, if you want to clarify anything or feel compelled to talk. This is your hour, so just jump in.
There's one thing I would say there, because looking back on life, I've done both of what you said. I've built walls and built
Sure.
bridges to new. I think we all do. We feel our way. Sometimes we're, positive and negative. There's an ebb and flow to life. There's an inhale and exhale. I think that's just part of being. And that's how we learn.
I think so too.
If I may, one of the advantages, we often hear people say, "Too bad that youth is wasted on the young."
Mhm.
One of the advantages of being older is you go through what we call an examined life, and being that the mind is so crafty and is such a sticky substance, it puts a sequence to the events in our lives. And while George was sharing, I was reminded of one of my famous literary artists, Bob Dylan. In one of his songs said, "I could have been a doctor and saved some lives that might have been lost. Instead, I burnt every bridge I ever crossed." So as we go through the examination of our life, these things prick our conscience. But another thing that lifts that up is a saint is a sinner who never gave up. And so as we go through this, we keep the indomitable spirit of the human being keeps trying to recreate itself, to reimagine itself. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, that's important stuff. And when George was talking about the everyone has the ups and downs thing, it's not exactly what you said, but it was the idea that we all take parts and experiences of life and treat it either positively or negatively depending upon our essence at the time. And one of the things that I strive for is using the positive effort to apply that to my life at all times. Now, can I do it 100%? Obviously not, but the idea is there a benefit to being less on guard and more positive and striding forward? And I'm not talking about avoiding or ignoring the key points and elements that are going to make a difference in your life, but I am talking about taking what works for you and what serves your life and serves your purposes and use them and go and not hesitate as much as you would. So even though there's a negative side of me, because you can't have a positive without a negative. I mean, there's got to be some ebb and flow and balance, and the energy flows somewhere from some place. So there's a flow and a charge. But I hold the truth that the more positive we can be, the more positive the outcome. So if this show does anything, I would say I would want to encourage people to be more positive, and purposely, because it's going to pay off in the long run, and it pays off in the short run, and that's why we're talking about these life philosophies today. So thank you for getting us started on those couple of thoughts. I wanted to ask you though, on your second quotation, you talked about the Hmong culture, or did I misunderstand you?
Who's that addressed to, Roland?
George, you said, maybe I misunderstood you, but I thought the philosophy of the second paragraph was based on the Hmong culture.
I don't know where he got that from.
Okay,
don't know. That was no.
Then I misunderstood what you were saying. I thought this was
Oh, sorry, modern culture.
Oh, modern culture.
Yes.
I thought you jumped into an ethnic study right there, and all of a sudden it's like, I want to know more about the Hmongs.
You're living it, man.
Yeah. So anyway, never mind. Okay, let's go on to these. Let's move on, and we're going to take on your 12 concepts and see how far we get, because we've already got 15 minutes gone from our hour.
So I got a question before you jump in.
Sure.
It's just a statement. These are true for me. This is a distillation of my experience. So I'm kind of curious, and hopefully my perception of them is that they are positive in nature. In other words, they're high frequency. So my question to you two guys would be, do they strike you that way, or is there anything in there that jars with you? Because when I look at these, I reckon you can have two possible responses. They're either yes, this is true, or ain't no way. Or there may even be a yes, but. Anything about the ain't no way or the yes, but gives me pause for, well, it's not that it's wrong, not that you're wrong. What do I believe then? Because if this isn't true for me, what do I believe? Because we're always in that state of self-inquiry, or hopefully we are anyway.
That speaks to the examined life concept. And I'm fond of an expression by Winston Churchill that said, "The truth is incontrovertible. Ignorance may deride it, panic may resent it, but there it is." And so what you espouse are self-evident to yourself, and it speaks to the theme of what is the positive. You wouldn't gravitate towards this core group of people, both on screen and off screen, who says, "Yes, this is what I believe in." You know, it's like I remember one time Superman movie many years ago, when a day like today around the world makes people think about what's going on, as it has been for centuries. We're always at war with ourselves in one way or the other. And anyway, I was sitting in a theater, and there was a little boy in front of me, about 3 or 4 rows in front of me, all by himself, having a great time. He must have been about 8 or 9 years old. And Lois Lane says to Superman, "What are you into?" And Superman said, "Truth, honor, and justice in the American way." And the 8-year-old said, "Yes!" And I said to my girlfriend, "Okay, we're safe for another decade."
Oh my God. Okay, that's great. The only My contribution to what you said, George, in your 12 points is the only one that I have any kind of a funny feeling about is the last one. So we'll have to see if we can get to it. I want to take them in numerical order, otherwise we're going to get lost and non-directed in no time flat. But when you say language is a minefield, the first thing that comes to mind is that you've walked that minefield and you've suffered the explosions. So there's ultimately a lot of negativity involved with your statement, and it's not necessarily positive from the delivery, but I want to see what happens when you extrapolate that out, how you derive the positive out of that. So that'll be the goal if we can get to number 12, which is now if you can understand why I did not post the extended notes after that, like the divinity, etc., 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 and that stuff there in your extras. But we're going to deal with the 12 main concepts today, and we can probably let loose the conversation on the last ones if we have time.
I'm excited to respond to that, if I may.
Sure.
And I support George in the concept of that language is a minefield.
Oh, we got to take 12 when 12 comes.
Okay.
Which will motivate us to get to number 12.
Okay, we run into overtime. I'm sticking around.
Okay, and if it gets too desperate, you're gonna have to say no, no, no. We got to do 12 right now. I got to get this off my chest. So it's luckily a flexible concept. But what I'm trying to do is build up some steam to get through the 12. And I didn't purposely put number 12 at number 12. George did, and so it just happens to be number 12 is the one that I'm taking any kind of an issue with. And I really don't take issue with it, but I want to know what he has to say. So let's jump on number 1 real quick. And we had a whole episode of what is the positive on this particular subject. So the number 1 is everything is divine or nothing is divine. And we're going to start off with each of these with George telling us what his focal point is on the statement that he made on each number. So, George, everything is divine or nothing is. What is your take?
Okay. I don't see the world that we inhabit, the world that we're aware of, the whole entity, the cosmos, as anything other than energy. But I do believe that there is an overarching intelligence of some form behind it. That's about as far as I would take it. However, the reason that that statement was made was to focus my mind, because these are all I statements, these are all for my own use, I just shared for discussion here, was to keep me aware and focus my awareness sharp, that it doesn't matter what I encounter with my 5 senses in this 3-dimensional reality, it is all from that one source. And if one thing is divine, let's say human life is divine, then so is every other life, whether that be animal, plant, it doesn't matter. It's all divine. And therefore, this is my rule for me, I treat it as sacred and with reverence.
Very good. George, did you have anything to comment on this one? I'm sorry. Carlo. Your mic.
Yeah, stepping on the microphone. Of course, I support what George is saying is that the divinity exists across. If you see an ant on a countertop and you thump your finger in front of it and it backs away, because innately it doesn't want to be killed. So that same respect for that ant should be given to the highest religious leader in the globe, whatever your persuasion is. But we somehow lost track of that. Again, going back to Dylan saying, the world is full of vipers who lost all rays of hope. There's no safe place anymore, not even the palace of the Pope.
Wow. Okay. My 60 seconds on this is that I believe that divinity is absolute, and that any perception that we have as human beings or anything else on earth or anything in the universe that believes that they are not divine is a limit of their own thinking and their consciousness and their spirit, and that it's basically an illusion going on temporarily. So as humans, we don't think that we are divine, and we separate ourselves from God and so forth. When in reality, to me, that's an illusion. It's an illusion that we're separate. And when God said, I tend to mix religions, all, whatever rings true or feels good, I tend to lean on that. So if the concept of God spoke and nothing became everything is another way of saying the Big Bang Theory, or, once God thought one thing, that's when existence began. Or it's other, just different ways of describing what is. We don't know exactly how it happened. We don't know if the one day in God's Bible, in the Christian Bible, if one day was what we would call billions of years today in the same measurement. Maybe back then a day was a different measured differently. So we don't know. We just don't know how to relate to it. But we've all tried to relate to it this way. And the thing that I got from the Bible is that Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." And then he also indicated, "These things that you see me do, you will do more than I am, and greater things that I'm doing now. You will actually do yourselves." So what he was insinuating is that we have this power that we don't know of, that's infinitely beyond what we see him doing. Now, why would that be true unless we are all divine? And that the fact that the so-called fact that we can't do it is something that we've imagined in our brains because we think we are limited. And God basically said, "This is your universe, and if you want to think that you can't do it, you go right ahead. That's your privilege." So that's my take on divinity, and that's why I do believe that we are all divine. So are you comfortable, George? Or so can we move on to 2?
I'm happy, unless there's any comments in the comment stream that need to be addressed around
I
that.
don't see any yet, but I'm welcoming them, and I hope that's well. But wait a minute now. The thing that I am remembering is that the essence of Hangouts right now, the comment stream is not updating itself automatically very well. So if I don't update that, I have to revert back to the comment tracker, and I've got a whole mess of comments. Okay. Let's see, I made a landmark there. I said, we are chatting about philosophy. And if, here I am trying to conduct a conversation and read the comment. This is going to be a real challenge today, you guys, because people are commenting. So let's take one without necessarily analyzing what he's saying, because I can't sit here and read it and then display it. Otherwise, I'll kill a bunch of minutes. So one from Dan Weeks, because he always has some very astute things to say, so I'm going to put it up there. "I'm iffy about the whole all-in or total-out dichotomy. I like to entertain thoughts and ideas without actually accepting them. That's kind of a requisite if open-mindedness is a goal." Well, you know what? I totally agree with you, Dan. And part of what is wrong with people's thinking is that they hear something that rings true to them, or that they want to believe, that works for their life, and they say, "This is true for me. It should be true for you, and you should believe this too. And if you don't believe it, I have a problem with you." Now that kind of mechanism in thinking I have a definite problem with, and the open-mindedness alludes to the fact that you can think your own way and you can analyze your own way and yet accept other people's view of the same thing, and it does not have to be the same as yours. So I like what you're saying there, and I will review some of the other things going on too and try to keep better track of the comments, but we're going to move on to number 2. And I think that we're just going to have to settle for your definition of this and your description, George. "If you want to see perfection, look in the mirror." Your turn.
Okay. This one was probably this. I think this was put my teeth back in. This was the most recent addition to this list. because this kind of ties back into number one. They're all kind of interrelated. My understanding is that we are not raised to value ourselves as divine, as unique, as very miraculous entities in this creation that we're immersed in. This was a direction to me to not lose the fact that I am a perfect being. That's the way, if everything's divine and that's the way I was created, how can I not be perfection? It's one of the things that I love to express to everybody else, because if there's one thing that I'm aware of within humanity, it's how we are broken as children to not believe in our own worth. This is an attempt to redress that and turn it around completely. And mirror work is so powerful, so powerful.
Well, this is cool, and I think looking in the mirror is a great thing. It boils down again to your fundamental philosophies and how badly you are broken down, and how badly you're filtering what you see, because this all corresponds to your adjusted self-worth and your self-image and what you see yourself as, which determines what you believe you can do. And looking into the mirror is not necessarily an evaluation of what can be, but you got to start somewhere, and to take a good look at yourself and to evaluate yourself, and you come to the conclusion, I suck. I do this and that, and I wish I did this and that, and I have a deficit here, and that's me. That's me right there. And a lot of people would do the same thing. I mean, be down on themselves and be negative in their observation, looking in the mirror. And basically, we move on to number 3 from there, because number 3 and number 2 go kind of hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah. Yes.
So let's go on to number 3. Just as you are, I love you, always. Now we're going from an action of looking in the mirror to a state of being or consciousness. Just as you are, I love you, always. So there are 2 different modes of action and thinking. How do they progress? How do they relate? Go ahead and explain to us what your take is on number 3.
Number 3 was, and these were all basically created as individual awarenesses, and then I realized that there was interrelationships between them.
No.
This one, I started out doing mirror work by saying, I love you. I couldn't do it in the beginning. I just forget it. I couldn't look myself in the eye and say, I love you. That wasn't there. Over a period of time, I tried and tried hard and reached that space. But then I came to realize I was doing it from intellect. I was really good at it, and I was saying it from intellect. It wasn't from heart. So when I moved it into a heart space, then I came back to that place after I'd got into that, where I said, okay, it doesn't matter who and what I am in this particular moment, or anyone else, because everything's divine or nothing is. How I see you is as perfect. I love you just as you are, and I always shall, because you are perfect as you are. You're going through your life journey exactly as you're meant to. You can't mess it up. You can make choices. They're going to take you on one path or another, but it's always perfect because it's your life journey. It's not for me to choose and decide how your life is supposed to unfold. That's your choice, and your choices are always perfectly valid for you. Therefore, just as you are, I love you always.
And the other thing that I recognize right off the bat is that the acceptance of the statement of everything you experience, the acceptance is pretty much diagrammed out in just as you are. In other words, I don't expect or need you to change. I don't need anything from you. Just as you are. Just as you are. That's not you plus me, and that's not me minus you. It's nothing. There's no equation there. It's a state of being, just as you are. And then when you declare, I love you, is such a, nobody can contest the idea that it's a powerful, powerful vibration if the person speaking those words means it. And they're all going to mean it to a different degree, but it's got to be somewhere in the positive. I love you. We have to really stretch to put that in the negative realm. And always, it kind of a guarantee that it's a state of being. It's who I really am. And if you love always, that's as true a self as we can possibly get. That's the real true self. And I really like this statement, and it should apply to everything that we do, not just Sundays, not just when we go to church, or not when we take a break from the hectic world. It should be the way we live our life. So if you're having a hectic day, we should still be attuning ourselves to the concept of just the way life is, just the way the people are, just the way I am. I love you always. And that's part of positive vibration. Now, we have different thoughts going on. We know that Dan Weeks is out there, and he's my favorite skeptic atheist. And we had a session with him, and I pretty much decided. I knew this before the session started. I'm a skeptic of my own right, and which is why I did my shows. Which is why I got this show. What is the positive? I have my skeptic ideas regarding culture and people and the masses, and what they think and what they do as a result of their beliefs. And so my skepticism is based on, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you attach yourselves to things that are inconsequential in humanity? And why do you set these parameters or limits and build the walls, as we're talking about, when you don't have to? And I don't really understand that from the state of practicality, but from the state of defensive and then emotions, I do understand why people do it, because they're fearful, afraid, and they don't know. So there's a couple of things that Dan says, my skeptic atheist friend, and he says, if there is no divinity, then there is no God, and if there is no God, then there's no separation from God. So he makes a really good point that either way, if you're plus God or minus God, there is no separation from God. And if the God exists, there can be, by definition, no separation from him. So I like the equation, and I appreciate your comments there. And he follows up and says, so no, those of us who reject the magical explanation are not broken or somehow incomplete. And those of you who claim God, you suffer the opportunity to be incomplete just because of the very nature that you've spoken the word God and believe it. And if you believe there's a God, you should also believe that he basically exemplifies and defines the word trust and the word faith and the word forever and always and I love you. I mean, he's the definition of that. And so if that's the case, if you're going to claim God, let's start living from that point, which is why my whole philosophy and what is a positive is be as positive as you can. And when we fall short, and we will, so be it. But bounce back and turn your cheek to the other side and look towards the positive. Carlo, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I may be going out on a limb here, setting myself on fire.
Okay. I'd
But
like to watch.
going to the words, speaking to the words, words are a very funny trigger, and people have a knee-jerk response to it. And so sometimes when the word DOG or GOD is used, people get a knee-jerk response. So it reminds me of a funny little story. I was sitting around with some other business executives having breakfast, and the waitress came over to take our order. And she's telling us what's on the breakfast menu, and she says, and there's oatmeal. And this one guy says, I hate oatmeal. I hate the concept of God. He didn't say that part. And one of the other guys said, what do you mean? He said, well, since I was 8 years old, my mother made me eat oatmeal every day, and I refuse to eat it now. And he said, look how God still controls you. I mean, look how oatmeal still controls you.
That is a really funny story. And when we make these associations, you know, and literally we make dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of associations just like that. And we don't even realize why we conclude that what we do, but there are these associations and attachments.
It's been said centuries ago, the divine expression of ego is to try to make everybody else like ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So some words are triggers, and so maybe if we call it something else, it wouldn't hurt so much.
I think I used to, at one point in my life, I was the entertainment director or the entertainment manager for the Rubens restaurant chain and also the Black Angus restaurant chain. I had a total of 22 restaurants that I was in charge of, and I helped hire, fire, and train and direct about 44 disc jockeys. Now, disc jockeys are weird people, but one of the things is like I told them basically, if you're not here because you want to be, get the hell out. And you know, it was like getting down to the nitty gritty of why they were there. But I basically wanted to teach people that they have to decide for themselves exactly what they want to do and live that, whether it's to be here and to be there in that job or to be elsewhere. And one of the things that comes up that came up with my people is that they're very egocentric. And so I had to define for them. You guys are very egocentric. Almost all of you. You've all got this personification of what you think you should look like as a disc jockey in the booth, and you're portraying that person. And you're basically acting. You're acting out the part of what you see, how you see yourself. And I said, I want to talk to you about the definition of egocentric, which really applies to all of you, and the concept of ego focus. Now, it's perfectly great and fine to be ego focused, but you guys are egocentric. And what is the difference? And basically, there's a control factor for the ego focus that allows you the power of what you know about yourself and your confidence without being egocentric. In other words, portraying that this is the image that I see and that's raised higher than what reality is, and that's what I want you to see. And that was kind of like the description that I made to the people of the difference between egocentric, which is this outpouring energy of like see me and look at me and here's who I am, so they start to believe it themselves just so that they can convey it to everybody, versus ego focused, and that is a controlled thought belief system governing who you believe you are and what you have confidence in. But I don't care if anybody agrees. And so it's a determination of how you feel to determine how you're going to act. And to me, that was more of the ego focus concept versus the egocentric. I don't know if anyone wants to respond to that.
Let me go back to that. First, let me say one of the things. Thank you, Will. One of the things that tickles me before I say what I'm going to say is that I heard that Bob Dylan one day said, "Just because you like my music doesn't mean I owe you anything." So, so having said that, what is the difference between going to worship a concept, the magical concept, or what is the difference between worshiping a scientific concept that in itself is magical? Remember, there was a time when the Indians didn't want you taking their pictures, for fear you stealing their soul. Mm-hmm. So Dylan's words was, everybody's got to serve somebody. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Now let's analyze that statement. Let's see, I think I've got some feedback coming. Does anybody have any live speakers going? Because that may be the reason. Or I think Hangouts has its own way of creating feedback. When we don't have any naturally happening, they'll throw us a curveball. But anyway, oh my God, I forgot what you just said. Anyway, maybe it's time to move on. I love the discussion, and we could spend a lot of time.
No, I said everybody's got to serve somebody.
Yeah. And the essence of that is that Dylan had a bit of a skeptic and negativity about his concept of that. In other words, it's a give. I give up. Everybody's got to serve somebody. And another person, maybe myself, would be saying, everybody's got to serve somebody. You've got to serve people. It's got to be the nature of your personality, the nature of your spirit, the nature of your outreach has to be service. And I believe this to my core being, which is why I started the Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties the way we did, and saying, look, if you're not willing to give, if that's not the first thing, if you're not willing to give, then go away. Don't watch the show because I'm not interested in talking to you. And so the giving thing is a very big thing, but service and understanding that service is part of that giving and being willing to serve others does not make you a servant. It does not do that. Although we could say we are all servants, and that is our purpose in life, that's still an equation. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why number 12 wraps us up. Okay, so we've already covered number 12. Okay, let's edge our way through a few more of these. I love this next one, and it shouldn't take us too long. Number 4, excuses be gone.
This was the title of a book by the late Wayne Dyer. And basically, we are all self-delusional to whatever degree. We will find excuses for things based in our fear or whatever other reason we think we don't need to do something, even when consciously we know we really damn well should get off the dime and get this task done. So it's real simple. I mean, what's not to understand about excuses begun? Quit making excuses. Do the thing you need to do.
I agree. Anything, Carlo?
I thought I was the cause of the feedback. No,
that was personalized now.
I'm anxiously waiting to get to the bottom of the 12th step.
Okay, so I agree with you totally. I have nothing to add. George was good. Number 5. You are everything unto yourself. Now you're really going to have to kind of explain this one to me. I think George froze. So George, you're on a freeze. You froze for a few seconds there.
I'm back with you.
We're on number 5. You are everything unto yourself. Go ahead.
This again ties back into the everything is divine and perfection. And just as you are everything unto yourself, because, again, my picture of what we experience here is that we're like a little wave. We're connected to and part of the ocean. We appear as an individuation, but we're actually part of the whole. That's because we all come from the same stuff anyway. So you are innately, because we are holographic in that sense, you are innately everything unto yourself. Whatever you perceive yourself to be your limitations, the parameters of this little wave sticking up above the ocean, if you go deeper into that connection, you are everything. In other words, I think one of the important things around this is to say that we don't need anything from anyone else. And we're often raised to believe that we do. That's not true, my perception anyway.
Agreed totally, and that concept affects several points. It affects 2, 3, and 1. I mean, it links it all together basically, because if you are everything, which is what divinity is, you don't need anything, and you can do anything you want to. And the secret thing for us is figuring out how we express. One of the affirmations for me in my 30-day challenge is, I am an aspect of God expressing himself as me. In other words, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just God expressing myself as a human being in a wheelchair, for now. But that's how I'm expressing myself. I am God incarnate expressing myself as this person that I am, that you see, that I think I am, and that I'm believing, and that I'm motivating this journey as God incarnate as a man. And Wei has part of his mantra the same way. I'm divinity having human experience. So that emulates the same concept, and it's basically describing the same thing in a few different words. We're back to number 12. Okay. So I like this one, and I live my life this way. And when people start complaining to me about what is, I always go here, and that is number 6. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Another one that may not take much discussion at all.
That was, of course, the famous statement by Mohandas Gandhi, be the change. In other words, don't look outside yourself for change. Be it, because by being it, you resonate that frequency out into the holographic universe and start to create the change you wish to see and be. That's really easy to me.
Yeah, I think that so often people take on the concepts of change or the potential change based on what they just hate in the world. And they say, this has got to end, this has got to change, we have to fight this thing. And I always come back to the concept of Mother Teresa, who said to someone who wanted to invite her to an anti-war rally, and she goes, thank you, but I'm going to respectfully decline. These aren't her words exactly. I'm horrible at repeating quotes and pretty fair at paraphrasing, so that's what you're going to get. But anyway, she declined to go to the anti-war rally, but then she said, but if you have a peace rally, a pro-peace rally, invite me. You know, in other words, I'd be glad to support the thing that we want to see as a change. So being the change is aligning your energies to the change that you want to see. And that is how, indeed, you attract the thing that you want, and not by fighting what you don't want. When you fight what you don't want, you basically give the existence to something that you don't want. You give it credit, you give it substance, and you're fighting it so that you're validating the fact that it exists. And in this world, if we are a spiritual world, if we are divine, then the way we fight it, or actually the way we disseminate the potential of what it is that we don't want, is by being other than what we don't want. Being the thing that we want to change. Being the love, being the light, being the change, and manifesting it starting with ourselves. Not by changing other people, not by putting somebody down or stepping on the ant, so to speak, but literally being the change that we want to see. So I think that this is probably worth the whole show, but we're going to move on. Okay, you guys ready? Or Carlo, do you have anything to add?
Lots, but I'll wait.
Number 12, okay. 7. Here, I'll go, we got the half to go, and we've got like 1/6 of the show left, but I still want to go to some of the things that people are saying. And for one thing, Dan Weeks, I agree with you. Frankly, the God in the Bible is not exactly a role model. And it's not that the concept of the God is not a role model. It's the people who are writing about him have a misconception about who God is and what he means. And this is where I have a problem with the Bible.
Couldn't agree with him more.
Yeah.
You remember that, with respect, that Bible was written 300 years after the passing of that mystic. Nobody was taking notes.
Yeah.
And yet, those who have that dog in the fight will fight that like a book of law. But it's the same truth that mystics have been talking about for centuries. So I support, not that he needs it, Dan Weeks' statement.
Yeah, I mean, I just basically agree with him completely. And Deborah Burden says, if you want to see, if you want to see perfection, look in the mirror. Number 3, just as you are, I love you always. As self-love and acceptance of self, and love yourself for being. And that is a state of being, and that is something that we need to do because, quite honestly, the equation is you cannot love others more than you can love yourself. And so if you don't love yourself, you are not capable. And people would jump on me and say, my life sucks and I hate everything about it, but I do love people and I do this. I believe you. I believe you. But you have limited the potential and the capacity of your actual true love for others by how you love yourself. I mean, I believe that, and we can talk about it more, and we can extend the conversation on another day or have a whole series of freaking hangouts and talk about it every week if you like. Because as far as I'm concerned, no. You have to start by loving yourself. So, whatever you, I tell you what, I'll be a little bit crass here. Whatever your problem is, you want to talk about loving yourself, let's talk about it. Oh, and we'll conquer that one next time. And Weewick was saying, trying to change someone else is always a recipe for conflict.
Yes.
So, good point, and I agree with you 100%, Weewick. And I'm not out to change anybody. I may be out to influence their thinking, but that's another thing. And I can't seem to get rid of the screen share of the comment tracker, so we're having our own little malfunctions here. Let me see if I can fix this. I don't know. Oh my gosh, I figured it out.
Speaking to Vivek's comment, yes, this is exactly what we experienced in Brussels this morning. Trying to change somebody else.
And that's part of the fear factor across the board. The people take their religious focus and use it as the shield as they defend themselves against things that have nothing to do with religion and nothing to do with spirituality. And that is the fear coming out. And number 3, let's see. Just as you are, I love you always. Yep. And I'm starting to see why these are your 12 essentials. Number 7, here, now, my choice point. And I really want to spend about a couple minutes on this, if we can.
Okay, this came from I think we've actually dealt with this in a prior session, Roland, but my perception, we see ourselves as linear creatures, that forward is out there and behind is out there, and we're moving towards wherever it is we think we're going. I don't think life actually works that way. I think we're the fixed point, and life and energy is coming to us. As we radiate, it goes out and it creates life that we perceive. That's where the here and now. Now, that's one of the exhortations. Be present, be aware, be here now. So if you're always here now, you're always in that famous place of being able to make a choice. That's the one thing that we know we have. We can always choose. So that's where this one comes from, because I am always here now at my choice point. And that, to me, is a very direct way of becoming always aware, or as aware as I can ever be.
It's such a very, very important thing. When I consider the past and the future, both have relevance regarding what I think and feel and believe. However, all my power is in now. That is the only power that I have. That's all the power I have. Everything else is a thought and a wish about the future, or something that I'm longing for, or wanting, or intending to manifest. It's all in the future, but it is not now. It is not reality until it happens. When it happens, guess what? It's now. When it happens, it's now. And everything in the past is trash, is baggage, is learn lessons or things that you avoid. It's all the push-pull of your emotions that have nothing to do with what is going to be or what is now. So I use the historical landmarks in my life as guideposts and signs to remember things, to determine how I think and how I feel and what I believe. But it's the past, so I don't cling to it. I don't dwell in the past. I am in the present, moving forward most of the time. It's part of the positivity.
Let your past be your wisdoms.
Let your past be your wisdoms. And always look at it like that, even if it's something that happened that was negative and you didn't like, something positive came from that.
Mhm.
And there will be people that argue to me to the death about why something was not positive and why someone died or someone or a Holocaust or whatever it was. It's like you cannot tell me anything positive came from that. Something did.
Mhm.
Something did. And at a larger scale, at a deeper scale, there are things that came away positive from that. Okay, number 8. Every relationship is sacred. Do we even need to talk about that?
The one thing that I would point out about that is it starts with the guy in the mirror, because your relationship with yourself is sacred. Everything is divine, you are divine, and you are therefore sacred. And everything, it's not just person to pet, person to tree, person to anything, is everything is a relationship, and every relationship is sacred. That's my perception anyway.
And the relationship you have with yourself, again, is maybe of utmost importance because that brings us back around to when you're looking in the mirror, what do you see as yourself? Whether you love yourself, how greatly you love yourself, whether you see yourself as divine, determines everything else in your life that you're going to do. So we start there, right? So every relationship is sacred, starting with the man in the mirror, or the woman in the mirror, or the dog in the mirror, whatever. It starts with us. The dogs already know this, by the way.
Who let the
Anyway,
dog out?
well, now we're getting into the dominion over dogs, and I think that's exactly where we didn't want to go with this. Okay, number 9. We are all here to walk one another home, and I love this one, and I'll let you speak.
Again, this is a thank you to a very wise person. This came from Ram Dass. Um, One of the things that I've always sought to do is to figure out my purpose in life. And what I've distilled it down to is that I'm here to be of greatest service I can be. And that's what this statement speaks to. Because, and this is my experience as well, if you are present for another, we all share the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of life. If you're in a good space and somebody comes to you asking for help, there's nothing finer than to hold a hand out and say, sure, I'll help you along the pathway. Let's walk together for a little while. That's what this is. We're all here to walk one another home, and we're all walking home.
Absolutely. And part of the walking home is like not completing a life that has an end to it, but simply a part of their journey that is continues. And it is the expansion journey. The universe is not expanding and contracting. The universe is expanding. And that is the only thing that it can do. It can transform, but it's only going to expand. Because if there was a void, it's going to go and fill that void, right? If you pour a, if you pour water into a glass, it takes the shape of the glass. The universe has no shape. So inevitably, when consciousness expands out and reaches, how far does the universe go? Guess what? They're going to be looking forever. Forever
Mhm.
and ever and ever, because there is no limit. So, wrap your brain around that and start thinking about what is God, what is reality, and so forth. We don't know. So, nobody can come up and tell us, this is it, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to go to hell, and blah, 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 blah. It's like,
Let's ask Neil deGrasse.
okay, I think we're running over time here, but we got a couple more. This one, you're gonna have to explain to me a bit. There is no other. Now, I have my
Well,
feelings
this
about
one.
it, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, this tied in from number 9. We're all here to walk one and other home. There is no other. It's all one. So what we perceive as separate is just another individuation of the same source, whatever name you want to apply to that supreme entity, that intelligence that not only created but correlates and controls and balances all. Because if you look around, This is a miracle that we're experiencing. And there's no separation. There is no other. We're all part of this one. We're all created from the same source.
Agreed.
We all smile in the same language.
Yes, I like it.
Part of the set of affirmations I have for my challenge is that I am an aspect of God expressing myself as me, and which pertains to now every other individual. You are an aspect of God expressing yourself as you, and you deserve the very same equitable respect and love as I do, and everybody does, because inevitably we are all the same. If I and the Father are one, and you and the Father are one, guess what? You and I are one also, because we are all the same energy of God. So, God damn it, people quit having wars and quit fighting and quit arguing and listen to me, damn it. Okay? I, I
If
know
it
that
could be
was
that easy, if it could be that easy, we'd all be fine.
yeah, agreed. So excuse me, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay, 11, we're almost through. Love is the answer, no matter what the question. Go ahead.
I'm going to refer you back to the side notes, because the side notes relating to this one says love is always unconditional. Otherwise, it is not love. That's where language is the minefield. Because we have so many definitions of what love is. I love New York. You know, the heart symbol? What does that mean? It makes a joke of the word. It really does. Love is an unconditional relationship base where there is total giving and flowing. It's a giving, it's an outpouring, it's an energy. And if it's conditional, it is not love. So that's where love is the answer to any question, because that's what we're all yearning for in our hearts. Anything, they say anything is either an act of love or a cry for love. And when I see a lot of the horrendous things that happen in the world that are perceived as horrendous, the people that perpetrate them are so crying out for love, so lacking in love, that they can actually carry out the acts that they do. They don't need less love, they need more.
The way I look at that is similar to the concept of life and death as a human, and the existence of eternity, and the ongoing nature of the spirit or soul, that people think there's a limit. And once they think there's a limit, then there is a filter with which that they're going to expend their energy. And if they're going to have limited time to expend their energy, they want to get the most out of it possible, and they want to get the most things that are in agreement with what they think life is all about. And when they have life all wrong in the first place, how can what they want be right? How can you base your concept of what you want or what you think is important based on limited knowledge and a total miscalculation of what is? How can it happen? So if nothing else, we might be totally wrong about spirit, we might be totally wrong about God, we might be totally wrong about all things. But the higher vibration must be what we reach for. And the altruism of taking care of people, protecting people, being loving, being helpful, being of service, these are things that are definitely on the positive side of the equation. And I am a definite stressor of the positive. So, okay, and everybody, of course, has things that they would like to argue with me about. Oh, Roland, you're just a goody two shoes, and you believe and you have faith and you think this and that, and you're just like so positive and so forth. Yeah, I really am. I'm very positive, and I know it works, and you should think so too. and I'll let you think about that one. But if you don't,
And that's your story, and you're sticking to it.
and I know that there will be people that say, "Oh man, I just can't handle this guy. He's always talking about positivity and all this, and I can't even relate to it because my life sucks so bad. Doesn't he even watch any episodes of my life? Doesn't he realize that anything is going on?" Number 4, excuses be gone. I agree totally, and Excuses be gone. Find the solution. Be the part of the solution, and always look towards the positive. Find a way. There's always a way to turn towards the positive to improve a situation, and it all starts with our thinking, which is why this show is called "What is the Positive?" I've had a lot of fun with you guys today. We actually got through the 12. We're about 10 minutes over time. George, did you want to wrap up this philosophical session with anything?
The only thing I'm going to go back to is number 3. Just as you are, I love you always. Namaste.
Thank you for that, George. I appreciate it. Carlo, do you have anything to add?
No, anything I say would be anticlimactic.
Okay, then we'll turn your mic off then, and I'll go ahead and wrap things up here. You know, I'm as funny as you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't tell him that.
Okay. But we'll allocate the title of comic relief to the two of you, and the book ends, and I didn't give them that title. They gave themselves that title, and it evolved out of time. But I didn't bring it up. I never called you guys bookends, but I'm going to call you bookends now.
If
And
the shoe fits.
I wanted to bring to mind that we're in day 22 of the 30-day challenge, and I am going to have. I'm not making as much progress as I would hope, but this challenge is not over yet, and I'm definitely making progress. So I'm going to make a small video on what those things are and record so I can show everybody what's actually going on, and you'll see that in the next few days. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are doing great with your challenge. If you have any questions, call, write, send a letter, something, email us, give us a ping in Google Plus, or let's chat in video call. And I hope you guys will come back around and witness again what is the positive. We're going to say good day for now and say bye to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.